Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Jordan, welcome back. We're so happy to be bringing you a live program again this week. Right now, let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on with the show. Starting line is, of course, brought to you by Motion Pro. In the Next Time Try This segment, we're going to be taking a look at how to measure a cylinder. In the Motor Showcase, in 1983 KTM 500. In the Here's the Problem segment, well, we've got a couple of problems. We're going to read about them, and we're going to answer some questions for you tonight. What's it worth in 1976 Honda CR125? The 522 project continues. We've got a nice video set up for you tonight. I'm looking forward to bringing it to you. Don't forget to share our show on Facebook. Reach down on your phone or on your computer and let some of your friends know you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you are watching our show live from YouTube, we really appreciate that. We're looking to grow our YouTube channel as well. So please comment AMSOIL in either the Facebook comment or in the YouTube comment. Later on in the show, we're going to be giving away a nice box of goodies, compliments of Russell Water and AMSOIL. As I just mentioned, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's growing pretty well, but we still need your help. Of course, all of our shows from Vintage Motocross Q&A and all of our Vintage Motocross radio interviews are available on YouTube at any time in HD. You can watch them on your big screen TV. It's a great way to enjoy the past shows. Also, if you subscribe, a little bell will pop up just like that, tell you that we're live on the air with another episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank our sponsors, AMSOIL, Motion Pro, Vinco, Preston Petty Products, Full Circle, and of course, Nightmare Racing for all your support here on the show.
In this week's Next Time Try This segment, which is sponsored by Vinco, Keep the Ride Going, we're going to be talking about pistons, how to measure a bore, and how to get things correctly done when you go to order a piston. I spent some time talking to Jay this week from Vinco, and he said lately they've been seeing a rather large amount of pistons being returned because people aren't measuring them correctly. Let's start at the beginning with some basic stuff. When you take your top end off your bike and you take a look at the piston, there may or may not be numbers on it. Sometimes stock pistons don't have any numbers. Sometimes there will be numbers on there when somebody replaced the piston, but due to detonation or carbon, you can't read them. So you're going to have to measure exactly what the piston is, and you're going to measure the cylinder too. More on that in a moment. If you do take it out and you do see numbers at the top of the piston, you may see something like this. It says 448 P4. This is a Weisco piston for a 125 Honda. They designated their overbores by P1, P2, P3, up to P8. So if you pull a cylinder off or your head and you see one of those numbers from a Weisco piston, you know it's second overbore, third overbore, and so on. Here's the important thing. You want to first try to confirm that your cylinder is actually on its stock bore. It may not be, but go look up what the specifics are on your bike. This happens to be a 1974 CR250 Honda cylinder. The stock bore is 70 millimeters. I take a digital caliper, and from the top directly across, I take a measurement. It happened to read 70 millimeters. But now I want to check the rest of the way down to see if the bore has wallowed over the years. How does that happen? Your rings do not go all the way to the top of the bore. Where the rings hit, it's going to wear a little bit more, and your cylinder bore is going to get a little out of shape. So, for you guys who are machinists or know about boring cylinders, this probably wouldn't be the approach you would take. You may use a snap gauge. But for the hobbyist at home, you can go out and you can get yourself a set of digital calipers and also a spring-loaded caliper like this. And they say it's center spring-loaded because, well, that's exactly what it is. It's got a little knurled knob here on the end. What you want to do, you measured the top. It measured 70 millimeters. But now you want to go a little deeper down that bore and see if it measures true all the way down. This one's getting loose. Right about 30% of the way down, right where the rings would start to hit. You want to make sure as you do this also that you keep it as straight as possible. Don't tilt it to the sides. Keep it as straight as possible. Now, I've got this thing adjusted just the way it was feeling at the top, but now it was down where the cylinder had worn. After I took another measurement, I would take it like this, put it in between there, and the measurement I got was 70.5. So you can go over to Vinco, order a 70.5 piston, and you're going to be in good shape. Now, let's move on to if you have a cylinder that's scored. It usually happens on the exhaust side where things get hot. It can happen anywhere in the cylinder, but sometimes you do have scoring and you have to take the measurement within that score that's on the cylinder. Again, you're going to use this dividing caliper or internal spring caliper. You're going to put it in there again, nice and square. These points are very sharp. They should fit into where that score is. You're going to take the measurement at the deepest point of that gouge or score in your cylinder. When you do that, you're going to take a measurement again with your digital caliper. Now, this cylinder happened to be 70 millimeters stock. Let's say there was a score in it, which there wasn't. And that score happens to be 1 millimeter deep. So you say, well, I'm going to get on the phone with Vinco. I'm going to order a 71 millimeter piston. No. Your score is a millimeter deep. When your machinist goes to bore that, he needs to remove that score or the gouge. He needs to remove 1 millimeter in depth of that wall. That's all the way around your cylinder. It's just not on one side. So you're not going to go order a 71 millimeter piston from Vinco. You're going to order a 72 millimeter piston from Vinco. I hope I'm making myself clear. I want to thank Vinco for sponsoring this segment and for all they do for our support of the show. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Curtis. Any questions? Drop me a line.
In the Moto Showcase tonight, a 1983 KTM 500 that was sent in to us by Sean Hammer. This is a really interesting story. I'm glad Sean sent it in to us. As we go through some of the pictures, I'm going to read about this, and we'll learn more about this bike. He saw this bike in the front yard. It was a rolling chassis and a parts box. He paid $100 for it. First thing he thought he could do was possibly get his money back from selling the parts. When he got the bike home, he started digging through the boxes, and he saw that it was almost all there and complete, so he decided to do a rebuild. The biggest challenge was finding some of the OEM parts that were non-existent. He even tried contacting some sidecar guys in Europe, as many of these bikes were converted for sidecar racing over in the UK. The motor was reassembled, new main bearings, the big end, the wrist pin. He went through the whole engine, top to bottom. This was the first time working on a KTM, and with a rusty box of parts to start with, it was an interesting and challenging rebuild, to say the least. He did split the cases. He went through the whole thing. As you can see in the picture, he polished the tank. He painted the frame. The shock and forks were serviced and the linkages were cleaned up. And it had many, many years of use on it, but he replaced the bearings and the dust sealed. Everything went back the way it should. He put a big carburetor on there. He searched for months trying to find some of the rubber parts. He's even considered having some of them reproduced. It was an enduro bike. In one of the pictures, you could see that. He is going to put the motocross tail section on there, which was aluminum. And he now has a really nice bike. There was even a video on Sean's page that showed the bike running. And Sean Hammer, I want to thank you for sending in this nice looking 83 KTM 500. You did such a great job rebuilding. It's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing it all with us. I have your address, Sean, and I am going to get you a sticker pack compliments of fastguystuff.com and another guy named Sean Gomes. If anybody out there wants to have their bike featured here on Vintage Motocross Q&A, please inbox me some really good pictures, the way Sean just did. Some nice close pictures of the wheels, of the engine, of the tank. If it's a complete rebuild, send in pictures like Sean just did, and we'll feature it here on the show. And it could be any bike. It doesn't have to be a rebuild in the works like this one was. It could be a nice race bike. It could be a mini, any bike that really means something to you. I'd love to feature it here on the show and get you some stickers from fastguystuff.com. And here, the problem segment, we've got a couple of things going on here this week. And the first one we have is anonymous. I got a guy that every now and then sends me in something, but he doesn't want his name said on the air. And it's kind of a tip instead of a question. And I like to go along with it because he's a real good guy and he's a big supporter of the show, although he doesn't like me to say his name. He says, If you've just powder coated a frame or painted it and wanted to protect the side rails for as long as possible, how would you do that? He sends me the question and the answer. Here's what he suggested. He suggested you get some slip-resistant tread stuff, just like this. And this is stuff you put in the bottom of your bathtub or your shower. It's really kind of thick, and it's got a grain to it, you know, like a rough finish on it, like a sand finish, or that you find on a non-skid area of a garage floor that was refinished. And you can cut it in strips, and you can cut it just to fit some of the side rails on your bike where your boots might wear it away when you're out there riding and racing. And he said he puts it on like this, and he makes a little circle at the end to make it look a little nicer, and it's clear. So no matter what color your frame is, you can still see the color of the frame through there, but this stuff doesn't wear away, and it gives you a little extra grip on the side for your legs on your frame. Thank you to my buddy, Anonymous. Anthony Serrato, I bought a 1996 Mako RC250 for $300. The serial number is RC25096 0001. There's very little information about this bike out there, with less than 100 being made, according to the rumors. Any advice on where I can go to learn more? I would like you to think about something here, Anthony. I went and did a little research on this bike, and I couldn't find very much either on it. The interesting part is when you describe the serial number to me, you say it's an RC250 and it was built in 1996. That is the first set of numbers in your serial number. The thing is, the numbers after it, 0001. You may very possibly have the first 96 RC250 Mako ever made. Now, there weren't a lot of bikes made. I think it was only released in Europe. I don't know if many of these were found their way to America. I couldn't find anything on it in all the searching I did. What I would recommend is that you get in touch with a couple of people, either Fritz Gunther or Toby Offerman, or go to some of the Mako groups on Facebook and ask there. Now, I want to help out Anthony here. So if anyone watching this knows anything about this 1996 Mako RC250, please, in the comment box or tomorrow when you go to make comments on the show tonight, tell us what you may know about this bike, or where our friend Anthony Serrato could get more information on the 96 RC250 Mako. Brent Williams, Joe, what is the best way to check a gas tank for leaks? A lot less complicated than you think, Brent. Fill it up with water. Make sure the petcock is good in the bike and it doesn't leak around there. Fill it up with water. Let it sit overnight. Put it on your workbench where it's nice and clean. If there's a leak in that tank, you're going to find it. Doesn't have to have gas in it. Doesn't have to have anything special. You don't have to fill it up with air. In fact, I would never put air in the tank. Fill it up with water. Let it sit in a nice dry area, and you'll see if you have a leak in there. You won't wind up with a leak like this guy has, I hope. We're going to take a commercial break right here. Don't forget, share the show. Share it on Facebook. Share it on YouTube. Don't forget to comment AMSOIL. We're going to have a winner a little bit later on in the show. Let's take a commercial break.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, introducing you to the Masterlink Press Tool. Now, the Masterlink Press Tool is an innovative addition to our wide variety of chain tools here at Motion Pro, and what makes this tool so unique is that it both presses on and presses off Masterlink side plates. It's designed to be used with all 50 series clip-style links and performs the job very easily. The Masterlink Press Tool is constructed with a billet aluminum body and hardened steel pins for long-lasting durability. It's affordably priced at $28.99 and is available from your favorite dealers nationwide.
What's it worth segment? We got a 1976 Honda CR125, or so they say. This bike sold on eBay recently for $1,600, which I thought was a rather strong price for a 1976 Honda CR125. Over the past couple of years, we've only been seeing these bikes sell for somewhere between $900 and $1,200 in running condition, in original condition. Now, suddenly I saw this bike and I thought, well, maybe the market has kind of jumped on these things, and it has a little bit for original bikes, but not so much on this bike. And this one in particular, because the description was very, very forthcoming from the seller, who said the bike did not run at all. It either had sucked sand or filter in from the intake and had ruined the top end on the bike. It turned over very easily, but the bike was not in very, very good condition. Upon further reading, he states that the engine is an MT125. Now, MT125s had very, very narrow market for that bike. They were not big sellers. Some people still have them, more so on the 250. But this bike was not in great shape at all. It was kind of rough around the rims. The pipe, it was stock, but it had a serious ding underneath. And somebody paid $1,600 and change for this bike. You really got to read the description, guys. I don't know if someone who was maybe just getting into the sport went and bought the bike. I'm not really sure. The best thing about it to me looked like an ignition cover that was on the side that was maybe worth $300. The rest of it was in pretty rough condition. And for $1,600, someone should have taken a much closer look at what they were buying. Some days you eat the bear, some days the bear eats you. $1,600, way too much for that 76 CR125 on eBay last week. That segment, of course, was sponsored by Preston Petty Products. And at Preston Petty Products this week, we continue with 10% off across the board on everything that Preston Petty offers. That goes for grips, hats, front fenders, back fenders, integrated fenders, all the things they offer there at Preston Petty Products. And not only do you get 10% off, but when you order, I'm going to give you a coupon code. You're going to put it in. Paul's going to get in touch with you. You're going to get a free T-shirt to boot. So 10% off across the board at Preston Petty Products and a free T-shirt from the great people over there, Paul and Patty Stannard. Thank you so much for what you do for us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A.
This week's installment of the 522 Project is brought to you by Full Circle Racing, the best shop there is for all your spokes, rims, and wheels. Go see my friend Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. The 522 Project continues, and this week I want to talk to you a little bit about some special motor mounts that I made right here in the shop, and I'm showing you how I did it. You might be able to use these tricks too to make motor mounts of your own, and the same format would work maybe if you were looking to make a chain guide or something else for your bike. I took the stock steel motor mount from the front of a 77 Honda, and then I traced it out on a piece of aluminum like this. Tracing it with a Sharpie is really what's best, because as you start to cut it out, you don't want to remove that nice thick black line that's around the tracing. In this case, I happened to use a hacksaw because I was so close to the edge of my scrap aluminum that I didn't need to take a jigsaw with a metal blade in it or some type of sawzall. After I cut it out and got the basic shape, I put the piece on the grinder and I moved it around the grinder, taking off all the rough edges and getting down again closer to that black line, but making sure that I didn't take the black line off. After I got it roughed in on the grinder, I went over and I put it in the vise and I began to work with a crosscut file, something that gives a really nice smooth finish. And I slowly went around all three sides of that motor mount. I followed up with some sandpaper. Then I put the mount back down flat on the bench. I clamped it and I began to sand away any little nicks or imperfections that were in there. If you're going to make something like this, you can either put a brushed finish on it, you could polish them, you can bead blast them. I think by the time this project is done, I'm going to wind up painting them to match the bike. Well, as you can see, they turned out pretty good. You can see in the picture just what they look like. And with some aluminum and a little ingenuity, you can make something just like that. I want to thank Full Circle Racing and Tom McAllister for being a sponsor of this segment.
One thing I forgot to show is how I drill the holes, but you've all seen holes drilled before, and I don't think that's important. Jordan, great job on the editing. In the product spotlight tonight, Vinco, keep the ride going. Jordan, what do we got? We've got an OSA crank for the Man replica, for the Mick Andrews replica, for the 6-day replica, the Pioneer Stiletto and Explorer from 1970 to 1973 from Vinco. This is a new reproduction crankshaft, not rebuilt. This is brand new. It's made with a heavy-duty Yamaha rod conversion. It's got a modern rod design and bearing. The wrist pin bearing is included. $395.95 from Vinco, and OSA crankshaft. Thanks, Vinco, for all you do. Vinco, keep the ride going. We also got a special this week from Nightmare Racing, 10% off on all gloss black plastic. All the gloss black plastic, 10% off the defenders, and the side panels. You can inbox me for the code, or if you get in touch with Mark Hildebrand directly from Nightmare Racing, you tell him you saw it here on the show, he's going to give you 10% off. That's only on gloss black, and that's only until the end of September. Thank you, Nightmare Racing, for all you do. We're going to take a commercial break. Don't forget to share the show. We're going to give you some AMSOIL products to a random winner when we get back.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
In the Just How I See It segment tonight, last week on the show, I talked a little bit about some of the sports that we're seeing these days and the protesting that's going on. I asked what you would do if there was some protesting that began either at the motocross races or at Supercross. And I wanted to know, will you watch or won't you? The next day I put it on the page. I asked the same question. There were some respectful comments made, and then it got a little crazy. There was about 150 people that answered or responded to the question. Some of them said they had no problem with it. They would continue watching. Some said they would watch, but they would not support the rider who protested. They would not support his brand any longer. They would not support any of the sponsors that rider was riding for. So, and other people just said they would turn it off. They'd never watch again. All you could see from this is that there's like a further division in what's going on in sports. Some people are for it. Some people are against it. It was a little risky, I think, on my part to even ask the question. It's probably as close as I'm ever going to come to anything. Well, it's a social justice thing. I don't know if it's a political thing, but it always becomes that. Anyway, 33% went that way, 33%, and 33% went that way. So that's where it is. In the end, I think it's going to hurt people who have money invested in the series overall. It's going to hurt sponsors, I think. Or if sponsors get behind it, I don't know. Could cause a dust up one way or the other in somebody's pocket. There's only two really, really big sponsors when it comes to motocross and supercross. That is Monster Energy and, of course, Lucas Oil. So it remains to be seen. What do I think? I don't think you're going to see anybody protesting at all when it comes to motocross. What do we got up next, Jordan? Oh, you know what I got up next? I got a winner. I've got a winner. Walter Bode. Walter Bode, B-O-D-E. You are the random share winner, and you're going to get something from AMSOIL. Now, the way I've been doing this the past couple of weeks is I've been giving these things away from AMSOIL. What I've been doing is contacting the random winner after the show and asking them what products do they like from AMSOIL. One week I gave away some chain lube. Another week I gave away some Miracle Wash. Another week I gave away some premix oil. So it's not just a matter of what I want to give you or what I have some extra of. I want to give the people who are watching the show and sharing it something that they can really use from AMSOIL. So Walter Bode, I will be contacting you a little bit later tonight or tomorrow. We'll find out what you like and what I have to offer you here from AMSOIL, and we'll get it out to you. Thanks, Walter, so much for sharing the show tonight. This week in motocross history, in 1975, in Czechoslovakia, there was the Motocross des Nations. And even though the race was being held in Czechoslovakia, few thought that the home team could win the 75 FIM Motocross des Nations. The Czechs were known to be fast, but only on 250s. And as their state-issued CZ motorcycles were never quite right as a 500cc weapon. Plus, they didn't have their best rider that year, Jaroslav Falta. But on that day in 1975, Antonin Bobrovsky had the race of his life. He went 1-1 to win the individual overall, leading the Czechs to upset everybody and get that win that day. Zdeněk Velký, he ran third that day in the first moto. Čerevi, fourth in the second. And Miroslav Novacek was seventh in the first moto as well. All of them did fabulous that day and brought home the trophy for the Motocross the Nations in their home country of Czechoslovakia. That was this week in 1975 in motocross history. Also, in 1982 in motocross history, Danny McCoo-Chandler goes 4 for 4 in both the Motocross the Nations and the Trophy the Nations. That is a feat that has never been accomplished. Danny won all of his races that day, and from that day on in 1982, it's never been done again. Rest in peace, Danny McCoo-Chandler. There was never anyone quite like you, and your record continues. In the announcement tonight, let's take a look at what we have here, Jordan. VMX Radio continues. We had Ken Kaplan on last week from the new reality show Kaplan America. Jordan, why don't we play some of the sound bites we got from Ken Kaplan, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Vintage Motocross Radio.
When will you know that you're going to get a full season out of this show? Are there ratings tabulated? How does the brass at Discovery know what's going on and whether Kaplan America is going to get 13 weeks?
It's a bunch of factors. The Nielsen ratings, they have it on Discovery Go, so how many times it's watched after that. They also have what was called a focus group that watches the show and gives them feedback, and that's how we ended up on the family comedy night instead of the motor block. We were a follow-up to Dodgeball, which was a dud. They only had, the views weren't that good on Dodgeball, and they did zero advertising for our show. The only advertising was what me and Junior did on social media and YouTube. So we talked to the producer last week, and Discovery's discussing putting the same that first episode up again on a night where there's more viewers, like the Monday Night Motor Block.
How many people do you have at Kaplan Cycle working full time?
We have 18, and we just had Mario Testa. He's one of the Yamaha mechanics that goes to all the amateur nationals. He's a really high-end, really awesome tech that he's coming aboard. He's moving from Ohio to be a part of what we're doing. So we have another guy coming on board, and also the guy who runs Jeff Castine from All Sport. He's selling his shop. He's coming on board. So I have some guys that high caliber guys coming on board. We need more. I'm looking to hire mechanics right now and purchasing agents, and it's the hardest thing to find guys that know how to work on vintage bikes. So if anybody listening wants a career in this industry doing what we do, let me know.
Ken Kaplan, if you get a chance, go over and listen to that interview from last week. But this week, I have a very, very special guest, a longtime friend, someone I've admired for so long. Tony DeStefano, 3-time AMA national champion. Tony will be my guest Sunday morning at 11 a.m. at Vintage Motocross Radio. So please go over there and join us on Sunday morning, or if you have some time later on tonight, there are over 20 interviews over there with some really great people that have been involved in motocross over the past 40 years. Vintage Motocross Radio on Facebook. Terry Good in the International Motocross Museum. The date has changed once again due to this whole COVID-19 lockdown thing and getting international motocross stars over to Chicago. It's been set back now to May 1st, 2021. Table bidding continues. You can still get a chance to sit with some of your favorite stars in motocross. That ends March 15th. But as Torsten Holman and Terry both said, the longer it takes to put the show on, the better the show is going to be. I really admire what Terry Good has done, and I'm looking forward to being there in May. See if you get a chance to go over there too. Preston Petty autographed front fenders. You've heard me talk about this for the past 5 weeks. The past 3 weeks, there were only 5 of these fenders left. They were the first 25 fenders that were run off the press in 2016. The first 20 were given away to family members and people in the industry. There were 5 left. They're autographed by Preston Petty. We're only offering 1 a week here. 3 are gone, 2 are left. These are autographed by Preston. There is a letter of authenticity that goes along with it. They're $150. All the proceeds go directly to Preston Petty. 1 fender a week. Inbox me. I'll tell you how to get one. There's only 2 left. Next week will be the last one. You want to jump on it? You want to jump now. These are the last 5 of the first 25 ever made, autographed by Preston with a letter of authenticity. Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirts are still available, $21.99, 100% cotton with the logo on the front, and now my autograph on the back at no extra cost. Go into the description of the show, and you'll find a link on how to get your Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirt. Vintage Motocross sponsorship opportunities are still available. And the people who have been backing us so far, from Preston Petty to Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Amsoil, Nightmare Racing, they're all seeing the results. If you want to get on board, I'm going to be making this board bigger. We're going to be changing the set a little bit around here to get more exposure for everybody. Plus, the YouTube channel is growing, and I'm thinking about taking this thing onto a couple of other social media platforms. So contact me. I'll get you a proposal package. We can talk a little bit about what fits your budget, and you could be getting the same benefit as guys like Motion Pro, Nightmare Racing, and everybody else. Last week, we had one of our best weeks, hit almost 28,000 people. 28,000. I don't care what you do. If you're on Facebook, it's real difficult to hit 28,000 people a week, but you could do it through this show. Another number that was impressive was the post engagements. Almost half the people who take a look at our posts are commenting on it, liking it, and sharing it. Those are really, really great numbers. Our sponsors are seeing the results, and I'd like to offer it to you as well. So contact me. I'll get your proposal package. Well, I think that wraps it up for tonight at Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank everyone for watching, everyone for sharing. If you get an opportunity, go check us out on YouTube as well. And that wraps it up for us tonight on Vintage Motocross Q&A, unless everybody wants to see Gino. There he is. There he is, our dog Gino. Good night, everyone.